All right, today we're going to decode the secret language of startups. How does a little thought, maybe one you've had yourself, actually turn into a billion-dollar company? Well, there's a whole vocabulary to that journey, a kind of A to Z playbook, and we're about to walk through it.
So, let's start with the big question, right? What's the real difference between just an idea and a unicorn? I mean, it's a massive gap. One is just a spark, and the other is this legendary, world-changing company. The answer, it turns out, is in the process. It's a series of steps, and each one has a name.
So, first up, the spark of an idea. Every single great company starts right here. It's not with some 50-page business plan. Nope, it's with a spark. That moment where you suddenly see a problem that for some reason everybody else is just walking past. And that brings us to our first term, opportunity recognition. See, this isn't about having a lucky guess or a random good idea. It's actually a skill. It's about training your brain to actively look for unmet needs in the market. You're not just building something you think is cool, you're finding a real, painful problem that people are desperate to solve. So where are these amazing opportunities hiding? Well, you'll find them in what's called white space. Just picture a map of an industry. The white space is the part that's totally blank. It's where customers are looking for something, but nobody's offering it yet. And that, my friends, is your opening. It's your chance to build something new without having to fight a dozen competitors on day one. Part 2. From garage to company. So you found that white space. You have your big idea. Now what? Well, now you have to make it real. And this is where we get into that classic startup story, the garage, and the first real concrete steps of building a business. We've all heard the stories, right? Apple, Google, Amazon, they all started in a garage. But the garage is really more than a physical place. It's a metaphor. It stands for starting with pretty much nothing. No money, no fancy office, and having to rely on pure grit, creativity, and hustle. It's about being scrappy and making things happen. But you can't stay in the garage forever. To grow, you need some structure, and that usually happens in 3 key steps. First, there's the founding, the official moment your company is born. Second, you draft a business plan, which is basically your strategic roadmap. And third, you set up a legal entity, which is almost always a C corporation. And this last part is super important because that C corp structure is exactly what investors are going to be looking for later on.
All right, section 3, building the right thing. You did it, you're an official company. But, a company is just an empty box without a product inside. And this brings us to what is maybe the single most important challenge. How do you build something that people will actually want?
And this is the razor's edge every founder walks. Your time is limited and your bank account is slowly draining. The biggest fear is that you'll spend a year, maybe more, building what you think is the perfect product, only to launch it and hear crickets. So how do you avoid that catastrophe? The answer is one of the most famous terms in the startup world, the MVP, or minimum viable product. The idea is brilliant in its simplicity. Don't build the whole giant vision. Instead, build the absolute smallest, most basic version of your product that actually solves the core problem for a user. Then you get it into their hands as fast as possible so you can start learning from what they do, not just what they say. This whole MVP concept is part of a bigger philosophy called the lean startup. Instead of following a rigid plan, you work in a constant loop. You build a small thing, you measure how people use it, and you learn from that data to figure out what to build next. Build, measure, learn. Repeat. It's all about minimizing waste and maximizing learning. Okay, let's just take a breath and recap where we are. We started with an idea born from opportunity recognition in some white space. Then we made it official by founding our company, probably in a metaphorical garage. And now we've built our MVP. We have a real working product out in the world. Part 4, show me the money. So you've got customer feedback coming in, which is great. But to actually grow, to hire a team, to market your product, to really scale, you're going to need some fuel for that fire. And that fuel is cash. So let's talk funding. So you're at a fork in the road, really. On one path, you have bootstrapping. That means you fund the company yourself, using your savings or the money it's already making. It forces you to be really disciplined, but your growth will probably be slower. The other path is venture capital, where you take money from investors. This lets you scale incredibly fast, but it comes at a price. You have to give up a piece of your company.
Now, if you do decide to go down that venture capital path, your single most important tool is the pitch deck. And listen, this is not just a boring slide presentation. It is a story. It's the story of your company, the problem you're solving, the massive opportunity, and why your team is the one to make it happen. It's your weapon for convincing people to believe in you.
And your first audience for that pitch deck will probably be angel investors. These are wealthy individuals who invest their own personal money into brand new companies. They're the ones who write that first crucial check, the seed funding, that gets you off the ground and proves to everyone else that you're onto something.
Section 5, the roller coaster of growth. Okay, so you've got money in the bank, you've got a product people like. Now you enter what might be the craziest phase of all, scaling. This part of the journey is chaotic, it's exhilarating, and honestly, it can be pretty terrifying. So, buckle up.
You see, startup growth almost never looks like a straight line pointing up. More often, it looks like a J-curve. What that means is things actually get worse before they get better. You dip down into this valley of death as you spend money and figure things out. But if you can survive that dip and push through, you hit a turning point where growth just explodes. And as you're scaling like crazy, your goal starts to change. It's not just about surviving anymore, it's about disruption. You're no longer a tiny niche player. You are actively trying to change the entire industry. You're the new kid on the block with a better, faster, cheaper way of doing things, and you're aiming to take down the old giants. And if you succeed at that, if you truly disrupt an entire market on a massive scale, well, then you might just become that mythical creature we talked about at the beginning, a unicorn. That's the name for a private startup that hits a valuation of over $1 billion. It's the ultimate symbol of startup success. Just take a second to look at that number. All those zeros. $1 billion. It represents mind-boggling scale. It represents millions of customers. And it represents absolute confidence from investors that you are building the future. And our final chapter. You've done it. You built a unicorn. But believe it or not, the story isn't quite over. For you, your team, and your investors, there has to be a way to actually cash in on all the value you've created. This is the end game. And that end game is called the exit strategy. From the day they invest, your backers want to know how they're going to get their money out, plus a whole lot more. The two classic paths are either being acquired by a bigger company or going public with an IPO, an initial public offering. So we've gone from A to X. What about Z? After all the business terms, the funding rounds, the crazy growth, what's the one thing that powers it all? It's Zeal. It's that fire in the belly, that unreasonable, unstoppable belief that keeps a founder going when everything looks impossible. It is the human engine inside the entire machine. From opportunity recognition all the way to Zeal, you now have the map. You have the language of the entrepreneurial journey. You know the difference between just an idea and a unicorn. So the only real question left is, what are you going to build with it?